Welcome to the XP Group discussion of CIMA paper P2 performance management. Today we're going to look at pricing strategies. In terms of a matrix here. Now, let's start with the price-quality relationship. The general notion is that the higher quality a product has, the higher price it should command. That would make sense, everything else being equal. Nevertheless, we can see that there are certain strategies in the short term which can serve the purpose of winning market share or are part of an overall strategy of a company to be able to develop its position in a new or an existing market. Let's take the case of a company that wants to penetrate a new market. So it has a high quality product, for example, but it goes in at a low price. So that would be a penetration strategy here. Now the idea would be that once a considerable market share has been acquired, the company would want to readjust its pricing upwards. That would be an ideal situation if the market permits that, unless the market got used to paying low prices for that particular product. Let's look at another example where a company comes in with a quality, with a product which is not considered to be particularly high quality, but it comes in at a high price, which is clearly going to attract a smaller customer base than if it went in on a low price basis. So what it basically would be doing is taking money out of the pockets of those that smaller number of customers who are willing to pay a higher price for the product. This is what we would call a skimming strategy of taking the fewer customers who are willing to pay a higher price for the product. Now, is this sustainable? That is a good question, because a high price related to a low quality product is dubious. It may serve a purpose for a period of time until other competitors enter into the same market, and therefore the price has to subsequently be adjusted downwards. So it's all a question of understanding the dynamics of a situation. If a company comes in as a first mover into a market with a low quality product for which there is no substitute temporarily, and people are therefore forced to buy at its prices or not at all, then a skimming strategy could work out. In the other cases where we have high quality, high price, this is clearly a premium strategy, pricing strategy, which is a positioning of a product, understanding that its high price is justified by its high quality, and this is considered to be sustainable. Of course, we always have to look at these things in context to see what the competition is doing. And the flip side of the coin is a low quality product which is priced in a modest way and therefore is upfront considered to be an economy type of pricing strategy. Okay, now it follows from these strategies here. We have a whole list of different pricing strategies. I'll just comment on a few of these, and we can put examples against them. The cost plus is a markup added to a cost base. So cost plus pricing is typical of manufacturing companies. This is really a traditional approach to pricing, that there's somehow a relationship between the price of a product and the cost or the effort made to produce that product. Skimming, penetration, premium pricing, economy pricing we've talked about already. Target pricing is connected to the idea of target cost. In other words, if we can determine the price at which a product will be competitive, and we work backwards to what the cost constraints will be at the maximum amount that we can afford to pay for producing the product, then effectively we've combined a target cost approach with a target pricing strategy. Promotional pricing is connected to campaigns. Perceived value, as the name suggests, is the market will pay what it perceives as being a value inherent in the product. marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. This is more a mathematical way of determining at that point where by selling an additional unit, it's worth selling additional units of products as long as the marginal revenue is greater than the marginal cost, and it's just at that tipping point where the costs equal the incremental costs equal the incremental revenues that we've reached an optimal point. Then we have value pricing, product line pricing, and so on. These are various themes that are self-explanatory: price differentiation, geographic, psychological pricing, and then bundling of products and pricing as a package. Complementary products are all different ways. Usually in the fast-moving consumer goods industry, there's a great deal of sophistication in terms of how to determine the prices, optimal prices for a product. We can see a relevant cost pricing is connected to a discussion and an earlier topic where one would need to understand what the actual costs are of producing a product or service in order to understand how low one can go with regard to pricing that product. Competitive pricing is looking at the competitors as a benchmark, possibly matching them, product and optional pricing, and so on. Which brings us to a consideration of joint products and byproducts. Now, by definition, joint products, two or more products that have a common processing path until a point of separation. We can say as long as they travel along the same path until the point of separation, it is difficult to split up the costs between the two products. Products A and product B, they share costs until the point of separation, and therefore these costs are considered to be joint costs. Now, how do we apportion these common costs to the products at the point of separation? We can do it by looking at what the market value is of those two products subsequently, in other words, connected to the selling price of the products. We could do it based on number of units obtained, or we could calculate based on a net realizable value, which is defined as the final sales value of the product minus any incremental processing costs. Now, byproducts, in contrast to joint products, are not very important. They happen to be incidental. In other words, they are not going to be the reason why you would set up a business. Byproducts may offer a benefit almost accidentally, but it's still useful to generate or to exploit the benefits offered by byproducts. Now, the benefits are going to be usually expressed as a reduction in production costs. That would be the way in which byproducts express themselves. They're not going to have an actual they could have a selling price themselves, but the selling price that's realized is not going to be a revenue to the company, but a reduction in costs. That's sort of the conceptual way in which we could think about byproducts.